السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. كل عام وأنتم بخير، كل عام ووطننا الغالي بخير. يوم وطني سعيد على الجميع. طبعا اليوم نستضيف ضيفين مهمين جدا في موضوعنا اللي صار لنا أكثر من سنة نتكلم فيه، موضوع نيوكاسل وصفقة الاستحواذ. معنا اليوم السيدة إيرينا تسوكرمان. I hope I'm saying this right. From United States, a lawyer from United States. And we have also Mr. Keith Peterson, the original owner of the competition case against Premier League. Welcome, Mr. Keith.
How do?
It was a surprise.
Yeah, you only rang me a few minutes ago, but I pulled the car over and came in, turned back and came on to come on the show for you. I'm looking forward to hear what Irina says and the questions you've been asked.
At the beginning, Irina, please, could you give us some brief about your work, about Irina Tsukerman.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very honored to be here. I wanted to congratulate my Saudi audience on the National Day today and wish them a wonderful year of good health, no more pandemics, and peace and prosperity, and much success with Vision 2030 and everything else. As for me, my background is actually in national security and human rights law. How that is relevant will come in, I think, later in the conversation. But I do have a background in international business law as well. And I'm currently actually in Geneva doing some work here on the sidelines of the human rights session, and I'm also an editor-in-chief of an organization called the Washington Outside. It's a media website focused on international affairs, security, political scandals, intelligence-related issues, things of that nature, and the president of a media and security consulting company called Scarab Rising. So that's just me in brief. I write, I do academic research as well, related to reputational management, both business and government reputational management, and I work in bridging the gap between practitioners and academics in that sphere. So that's just a little bit about me.
Great stuff, Irina. Welcome to the show again. Mr. Keith Peterson, would you give the honor for first question for Ms. Irina? We'll talk first about the CAT case.
Yeah, first thing I'd like to know is what experience have you got in competition cases?
My background is mostly comes on the side of competition cases, mostly related to reputational issues related to these cases. I am not myself an arbitration lawyer. Just to be clear, my work has been mostly in contracts, in issues related to business contracts. With this particular case, that is actually something that I have been observing for a while and dealing with in private research due to the reputational and security implications of this case. So that's the background with which I'm coming in. The underlying issues surrounding the case are far more than a simple business dispute over matter. There is an issue of other countries essentially trying to disrupt business, and that is something that I have some background in, essentially third-party interference in competition-related issues.
So is it your understanding from the research that you've done that other countries are getting involved with a transaction where a Saudi Arabian interest is trying to buy a British interest? Do you feel that there are other countries outside of England and outside of Saudi Arabia becoming involved in this case?
Not only do I feel that way, but I've had personal observations of agents of those countries acting in that regard in media, on social media, and in transactions related to some of the business interests involved. I have direct observation of these facts, and I know that some of these parties have had professional connections to Newcastle area.
Can I ask you which countries they come from?
They're in the Gulf. They're involved they're related to the Gulf.
So they go into Gulf, the Middle East, but they're not from Saudi Arabia, the countries.
No.
Can I ask you, if you want to stop me at any time, or if you think I asked too many questions, by all means stop me, because in England...
I love questions, so please keep going.
Great, because some people say I talk too much, but I often think if I ask questions, I can listen more. So it's very interesting that you say that there are countries outside of that, because that's given me a great education. I'm a simple person who resides in the northeast of England and follows a team in the northeast of England. And I was massively attracted to one of the biggest organisations in the world, in PIF, coming to buy my football club. And I was excited by that. But I was quickly alarmed when I was told from responsible people that there were people trying to stop this happening. Listening to you is fascinating in the first few minutes, because you have observations of people getting involved in the Gulf who are from outside of Saudi Arabia. So the obvious question I want to ask now is, why do you think those countries are getting involved in something that doesn't involve them?
Well, so since you asked me earlier about my involvement in competition law,
yes,
I do have a great deal of background in geopolitical competition.
Really?
It's quite simply a geopolitical competition between country X or multiple countries sometimes,
yes,
and their rivals. So in general terms, in the process of that, countries will go far to compete, but sometimes the competition is not about a specific deal that somebody did not get, like in the cases of private organizations competing. Sometimes the stakes are larger. Sometimes the stakes are about damaging the reputation of another country by disrupting their ideals.
Right,
so
fantastic.
This is not about so much about a particular purchase of a particular club, which is largely irrelevant to everybody other than the parties involved, but about creating negative publicity, damaging reputations of the actors involved, and essentially costing prestige.
Yes. So what they would do is to stop a deal happening for a different goal, for a different objective. So they would stop a deal. How do they stop these deals happening?
Well, of course, it depends on a case-by-case basis. The specifics vary, but in general, it involves a great deal of a combination of behind-the-scenes maneuvers involving personal relationships, bribery, blackmail, extortion, and manipulation. Quite simply, something that is considered political operations or intelligence work, but in this case, more political operations. It doesn't, though it may be funded by intelligence. And on the other hand, publicity, a great deal of publicity, character attacks. By character attacks, I mean character attacks both on individuals involved in the case, but also reputational attacks on countries and interests involved. So it's a combination of manipulating different aspects of those involved in the deal, and it involves a lot of people, to the point that it becomes far costlier to go through with the deal than to withdraw from it or make a decision negative to it.
And do they use false information, or do they use facts?
It's less about information and more about creating appearances, making allegations, and creating appearance of a business risk, regardless of truth value or facts on the ground. Because there doesn't, for a business, a private entity, to be concerned about business risk, it's less about truth value than about what they're going to lose by getting engaged in that venture, which may not be necessarily fair to the other party. But from the point of view of stakeholders, shareholders, it makes complete sense.
So do you have evidence of this?
Not something that I would present in public. My understanding is that UK laws are quite sensitive to any publicity that is not thoroughly verified through very strict legal measures. I would essentially have to consult with lawyers before presenting it, but privately, that is something I could point to in a private discussion for sure.
It's worrying because we, people like myself, are what you call ordinary, simple, straightforward football fans. So we support our football team, and for many years we haven't been able to compete. Our owner, the person who owns our club now, has openly said that he can't compete financially. He said that he's come forward and said, I don't have sufficient funds to compete with the top end people. And I personally respect that. Some people don't, but I do, because I think, well, if he says he can't compete and he's prepared to sell, then let somebody else take over. As you know the story, Irina, the party that's come forward is a consortium of companies. Two of them are British owned, and one is owned in Saudi Arabia. So you've got three companies come together. The nature of the companies excites the people in our region. So those people, you've got British business people, you've got one of the richest families in Britain who are very credible and have links to football, but you've also got a fabulous mouth-watering company to people from my part of the world. We look at PIF as being one of the success stories around the world with phenomenal vision. And when you look at the 2030 goals, that they clearly to us want to change the emphasis on oil to various businesses, and they're investing in companies around the planet. And we envy, and we see this going on, and we think, why can it not be us? But when I listen to you in the first few minutes, at first I thought, what am I coming on to? What am I coming to watch? Now I'm thinking, I'm intrigued. I'm sort of sat with people who have an understanding of what goes on and what takes place. And most of this is beyond my thinking. Most of it is why are people stopping our takeover going through? And you telling me that it could be for reasons outside of football. It could be for geopolitical reasons that have nothing to do with football. And the way I'm reading you seem to be saying that people will falsify, make stuff up, take social media attacks, because we've seen that happening. We've seen a troll activity taking place that's actually been mentioned in a court in America, and they're targeting people who are pro takeover of this football club, and they're the people are pro Saudi Arabia, and they get attacked on social media. Now what you seem to be doing is answering. I thought this was the kind of thing you see in movies that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen to my football club, but you seem to be saying, no, Keith, open your eyes, because this does happen, and it's more common than what you think by the sounds of things.
Well, I would say that football in general has become specifically a geopolitical hot potato, because several countries in the region have there is a level of friendly rivalry on some level, but there is also some level of unfriendly rivalry.
Unfriendly. But some of these people are controlling football at the moment. If you look at some of the transfers that's taken place, some of the clubs in the region.
It goes beyond the clubs. It goes even at the FIFA, the World Cup. I don't need to point out what kind of shenanigans.
Right. I didn't comment. I'm going to just listen now.
One of the countries involved in World Cup, one of the countries has been itself accused of various things with the involving manipulation. So basically, to point out that football as a game has become a central issue, both a business, but also kind of almost a point of intrigue, political intrigue, and not just financial. So that makes it an exciting game on more than one level for observers like me to watch.
Sorry,
you can easily shut me up tonight. It's Irina, you've got to.
No, we're enjoying this actually.
I'm enjoying it as well because I'm listening, I'm learning.
Yeah. What I'm gonna do now, I will play 2 video. I will come up with a question that me and some fans we are going to make these questions, and you go on.
Okay.
Let's play the video first, and we'll go to question.
Okay.
Okay, this is the site for the live stream of the CAT case, and let's play this video, and we have a great question for our guest for tonight.
Steve, you might want to read it out. I write and reply.
Okay. Dear Mr. Horton, I write and reply to your letter of 23rd of June concerning the prospective takeover of Newcastle United Football Club by a company based in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, now all eyes on CAT against Premier League, 29th September, next Wednesday. This case started by Mr. Keith Patterson himself, NCSL 1892. Before Mike Ashley adapt the case for the value and to press or give more pressure on against Premier League. Of course, there is many evidence. One of them we just play it. Let's play it again. It was quick. This was one of the. It's many, as I understand. There is many evidence. This is only one of them.
Steve, you might want to read it out. I write and reply.
Okay. Dear Mr. Horton, I write and reply to your letter of 23rd of June concerning the prospective takeover of Newcastle United Football Club by a company based in Saudi Arabia.
So this is one proof. It's company, not a state. So the session it will decide if the case will move forward to proceed, which more likely this is what's going to happen. But this is a still maybe I ask you. With Stuart, let's show to with us, Keith. This is gonna be difficult to understand. Okay, if there is an appeal, it will cost us more months, and the lawyer said maybe it's 12 months if they accept the appeal. Premier League reason. This is because there is agreement between a club. And any issue between a club and the Premier League should be solved by only arbitration regarding Rule 34, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go with you, Keith. Then we'll go to Irina.
Okay.
With this one.
The first point that I think Alois just tried to cover there was the person in charge of the Premier League is a guy called Richard Masters. He's the chief executive, Irina, and he. There is a debate which is going to be settled on an arbitration as to whether PIF are a company or whether PIF are a state. And the arbitration process is said to, the judge has come forward and said that the decision will be made where they've got to decide, is it the state or is it the company? And are they separate? And in the first application for this takeover, there was sufficient evidence put forward to the point where the Premier League said they had enough, they had sufficient. Now, if ever you say to anybody you've got sufficient information, it means you've got enough. But what you don't ever do in a court case is say, we've got sufficient, and then turn you down. Because at that point, you're really saying, I've got insufficient, and that's why I'm not granting the decision you want. In the letter, which Waleed just showed up there, which might not have come through very clear, Richard Masters was written to by a lawyer, a Mr. Horton. And in that letter, he wrote back and said, we have an application from a company in Saudi Arabia. So in his own words and his own writing, the chief executive of the Premier League came forward and said that PIF were a company. The judge of this case in arbitration said they need to decide whether PIF is a company or if it's a state. And the chief executive just quoted in that letter exactly what it is. There's a lot more damning evidence than that. There's damning evidence of collective lobbying by companies within the region that you mentioned, whereby they not only send letters out to competitors of Newcastle, telling them not to pass the takeover, they also confirm that that letter went out. We've got a letter going out. We've got a confirmation that that letter has been sent out. And that in itself amounts to collective lobbying, and that's been given that opinion by a top UK competition QC who said it's clearly collective lobbying. We've sent that information to the Premier League. They've threatened to sue us on more than one occasion. But when they've had that information, they've never ever answered. They've never ever given a satisfactory explanation as to the legal aspects of what we've challenged them with. So I've written personally in October the 7th, 2020 to the chief executive, and I've spelled out to him the 3 areas of competition case which he's breaching: abuse of a dominant position, collusion, and collective lobbying. And he's not satisfied, not even answered me on that letter. Then I've gone to lawyers and spent money way and beyond the kind of money a football fan should have to spend. And we've sent a letter before action, and we've got a 9-page letter back, and we've had several letters since. And basically, the club now has taken their own competition action on. From our point of view, Irina, the Premier League have got to prove that they're not acting in an anti-competitive manner. I've seen evidence with my own eyes that convinces me they have, otherwise I wouldn't take the action on. And on the 29th of September in England, there's a case going to be heard just purely on jurisdiction, where the Premier League are going to court to see whether they can get the case thrown out or whether the case will run. And the argument they're coming up with is that they are quite similar to the arbitration. One of the other arguments we were told that they're going to run is that when you become a member of the Premier League, I must have switched. Actually, I thought you'd gone there, Irina. I thought you got bored. So one of the other arguments they're going to run is when you become a member of the Premier League, you've got to abide by arbitration. You've got to have all your disputes settled by arbitration. There's 2 things to answer to that. One is the football club's a member of the Premier League, but the company that's taking this action is different, and they're not a member of the Premier League. But the real reason is that I would ask as a football fan is, if you've got some in-house rules called arbitration, are you compelled to stick with those rules if that group acts illegally? Now, when I say illegally, Irina, I want to give you some juice, as we call it in England, some meat on the bone. Our Prime Minister has publicly called this group of companies, these 6 companies that's challenging to stop Newcastle being taken over by PIF, our own Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has called them a cartel. Now, I don't know what the law is in America. I've got a reason. I've run court cases in America, but I wouldn't like to tell you what your law is. But in England, if you have a cartel, the government are compelled to remove that cartel out of trading. If you've got a known cartel, now our Prime Minister's gone publicly and said in public, this is like a cartel, but they've done nothing about it. Now, how can England have Saudi Arabia as a major trading ally? They're one of our biggest allies in the region. And we have a phenomenal relationship with Saudi Arabia, yet they aren't able, one of their biggest companies in their country isn't able to go and invest in England. Why can they not just come along and say, we'll buy this little football club, Newcastle United? Who's stopping it? What's happening? So what I want like from you, Irina, is tell me more. I know waleed probably doesn't like it as much as I like it, but tell me who's doing this? I mean, I know which countries is involved. I know, and you've given us the clue with the World Cup, and I get all that, and I get the links of the football clubs they buy. But What's your understanding? You've looked at this case. What's your understanding that's going to happen now with the Premier League?
Well, there's both we are seeing both legal and political challenges to this issue. While Boris Johnson made his comments, the actors behind PIF went to the following the recent reshuffle. Just for those watching outside UK and not following the events closely, there's been a reshuffle of ministers, and the new minister who deals with culture, sports, and so forth, she is now handling the appeal from various parties behind PIF with respect to this case. So there's been a formal request for political intervention in this legal process. On a legal level, right now there's nothing. Right now, as Mr. Patterson pointed out, we are facing the first challenge, which is the jurisdictional challenge. But I wanted to go back to something. To a point made earlier, which is the issue of abuse of the dominant position in the market, which is essentially comes down to, in this particular instance, and there are many potential applications of what that can be, but in this specific matter, the issue here is unfair treatment of different potential clients, buyers, parties, based on biases, preferential positions, interests, whatever you want to call the motivation behind this difference. Now, from a legal perspective, we need to find out whether what the first question that's going to be asked in the legal process is, how does Premier League and its associates treat similar cases under similar circumstances? Have they ever had a precedent of being approached by an entity like PIF? Had they made similar decisions in similar circumstances before? And if they haven't, then who has? And how, in general, such purchases are handled by other clubs in the United Kingdom? That's going to be the first issue. What is the treatment in this case? What are the rights of the parties involved? How are they being handled? How are such issues resolved? What happens when there is a dispute about whether an actor whose purchase has basically been already approved, when they're being accused of being a foreign government? Now, as I've pointed out earlier, we have a number of clubs that are essentially owned by and closely associated by foreign governments of different countries inside the United Kingdom.
Okay.
So how is it that it's not a problem for them to be owned by these governments or by actors closely associated with those governments? I'll point out a club dealing with a completely different region of the world, which has been purchased by an individual, a very wealthy individual who has a very close relationship with the head of state of that country. So how is that? Is that really a big difference from PIF and its alleged relationship to the government of Saudi Arabia? At what point does it become unacceptable? Is it really unacceptable, and for what reason? What motivated PIF? That's one question. But from a legal question, there is also a question of the timing for the handling. Did the Premier League violate the right of the other party by its belated response, rather than doing its due diligence at the very beginning when they were first approached by PIF, and then just basically tell them, sorry, we can't do that for the following reasons, and that would have been the end of the discussions? They had allowed PIF to become financially invested in the process of negotiations. They managed to allow this to become a major publicity campaign. There's a huge deal of embarrassment involved for all parties. There's opportunities cost. There's been all sorts of things that happened as a result of a protracted process, as a result of which Premier League actually did not make its decision quickly at all. That was actually one of the issues with the case, that they postponed several times, and And now we are facing a situation where they basically forced PIF to withdraw the offer after 3 months of
17 weeks.
non-responsiveness. So the question is, at what point have they behaved inappropriately in the way they handled this issue? And even if PIF was not an appropriate party for them to engage with, do they still stand some level of damage from the way Premier League handled the situation and what it cost them? That's another question that needs to be resolved and brought up.
I mean, when you talk about that, I mean, you talk like somebody who fully knows your way around. You're coming over to me as though you probably know examples, but I don't know whether you do know examples. I mean, do you know about how, for example, Crystal Palace was bought? Crystal Palace is a club in the Premier League, and it was bought through a company. If you've got experience in America, Crystal Palace was bought via a Delaware company. And we all know that Delaware is a way that, for example, let's suppose somebody owns a company and they wanted to buy another business in that industry, but didn't want to be seen to be competing with their own, or didn't want the family to know they were buying. They can form a Delaware company where the directors aren't even nominated. The directors are kept private. So if PIF had opened a Delaware company, they could have stuck 80% of the shares in the Delaware and 20% in the names of the Rubens and of Mandarin Murdad at PCP, and then they could have given the PIF 80% Delaware. That doesn't make the PIF bid more legitimate, it just makes it more hidden. And what PIF did was they were very upfront and they said they wanted to do it legitimately and through the front door and do it with, with their name and brand on the club. But I don't think Newcastle's being given the same treatment as Crystal Palace. You then got to look at Manchester City. I mean, Manchester City is
another battle right there.
But I mean, it's Abu Dhabi state owned. So and then you look at clubs like, in the takeover of Wolves and in the takeover of other clubs where directors weren't even named. So where people that were controlling directors were not even named, and groups of shares were put through businesses, but directors weren't named, the control people. And even in the case of Man United, when the Glazers took Man United over, their main owner was not named as a director. Yet, these people have had the gall to turn around to tell one of our bidders, PIF, that not only are they not a separate company, they want to nominate the king or the prince as being a nominated director. That's an insult. That's an insult because in England, the Queen, under the Crown, trades billions of pounds. But she doesn't become a director of those companies. And if Prince Charles, under the Duchy of Cornwall, buys companies outside of the UK, they don't say, right, Charles, come on, you and Camilla are going to be directors. They say, thank you, sir, and they take the bid off the Duchy of Cornwall, and they do it. But all of a sudden, Britain have traded with Saudi Arabia for years and years and years in billions of pounds. And Saudi Arabia have traded around the world. Think like Formula One. Think of the greatest boxing fights now have left the UK to go to Saudi. Now that's all well and good, but as soon as they come along to buy a football club, or more so an unfashionable one in the northeast of England, they turn around and say, we're going to have to have the prince named as a director. It's absolute the actions of the football cartel as named by Boris Johnson, not Keith Patterson. Boris Johnson will tell you it's a cartel. I just agree with the Prime Minister, me, but it stinks. And I think what you're telling me, Irina, is you know that these things are happening. But what's your thoughts on whether the Premier League will get stopped in their tracks? Do you think they'll get brought to heel, as we call it? And do you think they'll get exposed for doing this?
To be honest with you, I see that this situation is more political than it is legal. Because the way I see it, they have used the legal system or the legal justification to justify a decision made either under duress from lobbying efforts or under some sort of incentive that they would not necessarily have otherwise made of their own accord. In other words, the sale was going in a positive direction until the pressure campaigns started. And I don't believe they would have made the same legal findings had it not been for this outside interference. And because this entire process has been political, the outcome will depend entirely on the independence of the arbitrary process and the way and whether it's going to be possible to shield it from third-party involvement, commentary, and the intimidation of the arbitrators. Quite frankly, I personally have heard of a number of cases in UK, nothing to do with football, by the way, in completely different areas, where there's been a level of interference in judiciary inquiries that had to do with with various things on all levels. I could go into many examples. Some involve even outright criminality by various countries and their interests, and we have heard of all sorts of things. And some things that are better executed are never seen or heard at all. But you know that when the process is clearly starts out one way and all of a sudden goes off track, there's usually something wrong.
But if the people buying this club remain determined, I mean, in terms of wealth, they're a substantial force. And we've waited longer. There's the decision making on this. You said about after 17 weeks, PIF walked away. This is now running for 18 months. It's the longest running takeover in Premier League history, and they still haven't made a decision yet. And everything they do, and they did to us at NCSL, they told us we didn't have enough money, and then they told us in writing they were not going to expedite what we're doing. So they're telling a single fan or two fans, you don't have enough money, but we're also not going to expedite what you're doing. So that means we're going to drag it on because we've got more money than you. In competition grounds, that's illegal. To when somebody's telling you that you act illegally, you can't unnecessarily drag a case on. And what they did was they queued up and put us behind people and told us they told us we didn't have enough money, we didn't have enough case, we didn't have enough reason. But we gave them 6 legal points, and they weren't able to answer any of those 6 legal points. They tried to answer one, and our QC said, if that's the best they're going to do, you'll win this case. The club's case is even better than my case. The club's case, my case, plus their facts bolted on. So the club's case is a substantial case, which I don't believe the Premier League are capable of overturning. But the problem comes when you say it could be more political than legal, because I switch that back, Irina. If it's more political than legal, then surely the judge is going to ask questions which removes politics from the whole procedure.
I'm not entirely sure about that, precisely because, first of all, when you want to... Okay, I'm going to be blunt.
Good.
Law and the legal system is frequently used in political goals without necessarily violating the procedural boundaries of the legal system, violating the spirit, but not necessarily the letter of the law. Lawfare. The term for it in the United States is lawfare. We have seen politicized processes which are allowed to go on indefinitely, and in which various government and non-government parties interfere as they feel fit. We have seen some of these processes most recently involving the actors from some of the same parties in the United States. Again, had nothing to do with business arbitration, has to do with other judiciary processes, but it's an issue of the legal system being where there are blatant improprieties, blatant falsehoods being pushed, and nevertheless, the process is allowed to continue, and the judges push forward without challenging the parties or allowing them to correct themselves as they feel fit, instead of clearly seeing through obvious politicization and dismissing the case.
Would like to have transsexual question to finish up with the CAT case, and to maybe a little look. Maybe I misspoken.
Transaction. Transsexuals. Somebody. It's someone's an operation. Waleed.
Pardon my.
I think it's
pardon my language. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Sorry, Waleed.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Ignore me.
It's okay. I apologize. I mean, a transaction question to the arbitration. Now we'll finish with the CAT case. It's been something that's misleading. They've been said it's going to be live streamed remotely, and the word live stream been taken off, been put to 10 again. And I just found out also, this is big point, as you mentioned, the Queen, Keith.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said regarding the separation also, I read they changed the chairman of the CAT case from Mr. Snowden to Mr. Miles on 31 of August. This is just recent because Mr. Snowden got promoted. And I would like to read this part. It's important. Okay. This is from this article I got sent by my friend Chris. Okay. Let's listen. The Queen has been pleased. Okay. Well, sorry.
Take your
okay.
time.
How? Maybe I can't read it. It's a small right here, but I will try. The Queen has been pleased to approve the appointment of Mrs. Justice Whipple as Lady Justice of Appeal, and Mr. Justice William Davis and Mr. Justice Snowden as Lord Justice of Appeal. This appointment will be which have in the Court of Appeal. Okay, how do we explain separation between the British government and royals when the Queen has been approved judicial nomination presented to her by the government panel? The appointment of Lord and Lady Justice of the Court of the Appeal are made by Her Majesty the Queen on the advice of the Prime Minister and the Lord Chancellor, following recommendation of independent selection panel. This is part one. Part two. Okay, let's answer this first.
Could you Irina or me? Do you want to read it and answer it, or me?
Go on, Keith.
So you want to? Do you want me to tell you why I think they've changed the judge, or do you want me to answer why I think the Queen's involved with the state?
Both.
I think you could change a judge if one was ill. So if a case was running, in time, and a judge had an incurable disease, or he had something that you could. So it's not totally abnormal to change a judge. To change one due to promotion for a case that's imminently going to run, there'll be a cut-off period, and if it's foul play, which is what you might be touching on, I think it will get exposed. I think it will get leaked to people like us, and we would raise it publicly. So at this stage in time, I'm not overly concerned about who the judge is and who isn't. And somebody said tonight, does it not worry you how good the QCs are for the other side? And I said no, because we've seen in history, look at O.J. Simpson's case. How did he get off with that? I watched him on telly. You know what I mean? And I thought, wow, I think you look at people in history who get off with cases, and you think it's incredible how they ever got off with that. And it's down to the money. It's down to the people they employ legally. When you get a case like this, and you talk about billionaires fighting billionaire organisations, you go and get what you think is the best QCs in the land. And when you say, well, the judges could be bent, or they could be seduced to give a wrong decision, it's very unlikely, because those decisions are always up for appeal. And if this case runs and the evidence is run, and so let's all three of us now just imagine there's a court case on today and you are on the panel, you two, and I'm sitting there on behalf of the club, and I say to you, tell me why it took you longer to decide on this takeover than any other in history. You've got to answer that. And it doesn't matter what judge you've got and what QC you've got. You're not going to change time. You're not going to make this 1.5 years of delay sound any better. If I say to them, there's a letter which says that beIN Sports from Qatar have been lobbying Newcastle United's competitors to cancel this takeover, you can't change that letter. That letter's a statement of fact. It's a physical document. And so no judge in the land, whether it's Justice Miles or Justice Snowden, is going to get a different decision. He's going to read that paper and he's going to say, good heavens, I cannot change that. You know, it's a fact of life. These people have got a document which amounts to collective lobbying. So I'm not worried about who makes the decision. What I'm more worried about, Waleed, is how long it takes to get this case heard. So on the 29th, you will get a decision. It might not be on the 29th, but you'll get a case where they say the case shouldn't run, and the club will say why it should run. And for me, the club will win. At that point, you'll then get a directional hearing about what the timings are to run the case. And that's all I worry about, you know, how long it takes to run the actual case itself. When it comes to who the judges are and who the QCs are, I think the key factor is evidence. And I think that the Newcastle United Football Club have got a case that the English Premier League, supported by their big six friends, won't be able to defend. Because I believe that under the terms of disclosure, they will go in the CAT case and say, we want to see every document that's been sent to the Premier League by Manchester United, by Tottenham Hotspur, and by Liverpool. And we want to see every time those documents mention the word takeover, mention the word Newcastle, mention the word consortium, and mention the word Saudi. And once you get that search on documents, and I've done this myself for millions and millions of documents, once you get that search, you'll get documents coming out that will confirm that some of those clubs were in discussions to stop this takeover going ahead. And at that point, in the disclosure point, I think the case will fall. That's my opinion. So I don't think any judges or any QCs stop that. Go to your question now about the Queen being separate to things. She probably isn't. Probably what they are accusing PIF of being, they're bang guilty of themselves. And I think that people are just trying to use reasons of piracy and human rights. I think it's just falsehood. I think what they're doing is they are using things to the nth degree and just manufacturing situations and making stuff up, as Irina said, which are very hard to defend. Because if I say tonight that I know that waleed steals apples off trees in Saudi Arabia, it's hard for him to prove he hasn't, because I've just told everybody on air that he has. So then how do you defend something that didn't really happen? And I think that's what Irina touched on earlier. She said that, you know, people can do this on social media and accuse a state of being bad to stop them getting what they want to do. So I think it has turned into a bit of a circus, this takeover, where reputational things have been put forward. And I've got to say that the fans of Newcastle just totally disregarded. You know, it's the biggest voted takeover ever wanted in English football. 97% of Newcastle fans have come together and voted for this one takeover. Now, there's probably 4 or 5 companies want to take over Newcastle, but 97% of them only want the Saudi one. So that's how much that campaign on social media hasn't worked.
But I have to add something else here, which is kind of disturbing to me as an American, which is the process of political interference, in this case domestically in UK, meaning having the Prime Minister weigh in and make comments and potentially being pushed to take the sale out of the hands of the private parties and essentially have the government interfere on the competitive basis without having sufficient evidence. And the evidence in the United States, the standard has to be pretty damn high for that to be allowed to happen. For
Yes.
a deal to be broken up by the U.S. government, you have to see that there is actual damage coming from the companies involved, the consortiums, the cartels are involved in unfair business practices, and there is damage to the public interest as a result of these practices. I don't see what were the practices from 3 companies coming together and who was damaged as a result. Right now, the only people being damaged are the Newcastle fans who are not getting the investments that they could have from the companies running a club and having sufficient money to invest in it properly.
But also the region itself has lost out on structural. There'll be, if this takeover gone ahead, there'd have been 400 million invested in training ground and the stadium. There'll be in the region of 400 million invested just in building works for contractors and employers of people in the Newcastle region. So the region, property, the development, pubs, clubs, hotels, entertainment, travel, this would have increased everything in the region. Our government has a policy, which if you look at it on the internet, it's called levelling up. And Boris Johnson has gone out of his way to say what we're going to do is level up. And what that means, Irina, in this area is if all the structure of wealth is centred around, say, London and Birmingham, the second city, and suppose 80% of the spend has gone there, the other people in the less populated areas lose out. So the government announced that they were going to level up and give more money, investment to these areas. Now, one of the biggest areas, probably in the top 10%, is Newcastle. The northeast of England is the forgotten area. So the ideal way to level that up was for the government to come forward and say, this has gone on too long. This has actually gone on too long, and we need to level up Newcastle. We need this investment. It comes from one of our biggest trading partners around the world. So we're going to get the Premier League to stop playing silly fools and get this passed. They did worse than that. What they did was the government, I got fans to write to the government, and we received over 100 different letters from different members of parliament and different officials telling us that the government could not get involved in the takeover of Newcastle by Saudi Arabian company called PIF. They said they couldn't get involved. It was a matter just for Newcastle and the Premier League. But we found out the government were lying, and we found out that through freedom of information, Irina, the local newspaper, the Evening Chronicle, sought documents which proved the government had been having a series of meetings with the Premier League throughout this process. And Boris Johnson himself came to the northeast and told people that this would be passed very soon. He said, we're going to sort this out. That was nearly a year ago. There was also a decision where the Premier League told government officials at a meeting that this was going to be sorted imminently. They were talking about within a week. That was a year ago. This thing stinks to high heaven. Our government have massively let down the northeast of England and the people in our region. They've let us down because they just haven't stood up and spoken for our region. We've lost investment. Even if it goes through tomorrow, we've lost a year of investment. We've lost a year of football, a year of progress. People have died during that period who didn't see the club win anything. So what happens there? Do we bring them back to life? That's how twisted and how sad it is. And they don't want somebody like me that speaks my mind and that can't be bought off. And they don't want people like you, Irina, that's telling people that there's untold things going on behind the scenes. But we've been shown evidence of professional involvement in social media by people outside of this region who've targeted anybody that supports this takeover. They targeted and it's a professional organisation, and they call themselves trolls, but it's actually a group of organised people that's doing it. And we know it's been funded. We know that the people that's fronting this up aren't normal, ordinary people. They're just followed. But the problem is they get followed by some idiots in our region that don't realise how malicious and how targeted these people are.
And some of these trolls, I must say, are in fact have connections to UK, have inside connections to Newcastle region.
Yes, they do.
And I think we both know that they are behind organizing the strategy. I would say the information war strategy. I would say trolling operations is not even the right word for it. I would say it's an information war strategy aimed at demoralizing the
That's exactly what it is. That's what it is.
Demoralization is not just killing a deal. There are lots of deals killed every day, but killing it slowly, tortuously, over time, making sure that it's dead not by a reasonable dispute or disagreement over terms, but killed through a protracted public humiliating process.
Yes. And
even if the legal process at the end of the day ends up being victorious for Newcastle, and the takeover, and the Premier League is penalized or compelled to review its policies and so forth, at the end of the day, everyone will have lost out by then, except those who wanted to see this exact process play out exactly the way it is playing out. These people, as far as I see it, have already won. They've taken the first step. They've created a lot of bad blood. They've created a lot of bitterness and heartbreak. And they've done all the damage that they could. And now, even if at the end of the day, Premier League gets a slap on the wrist and is told to do better, who is going to be helped by that decision? In fact, this case has set a dangerous precedent, in my opinion, of some parties being viewed as safe to discriminate against in this manner. It created a precedent of being able to act the way Premier League has acted with relative impunity. I'm not entirely sure what will come at the end of the arbitration process, but it almost does not matter. The point of lawfare is not legal victories, but public victories, reputational victories, damaging the opponent in a way that is more military and intelligence than legal. That's unfortunately why I'm saying that this case uses legal means that are important to understand, but it manipulates the legal process and the system.
They've done that. They've done that with me, Irina, where I'm just a private person that's used my own money and my own funds and my own legal contacts, and everything I've done, I haven't taken any money off anybody else. But they've accused me of doing that. I've had death threats. I've had people come to my property. I've had threats of violence when I go out. It goes on and on and on. And it got to the point where I just said, look, I'm going out tomorrow. I'll be there for that number of hours in Newcastle on that street. Come and see us. Come and see us if you want to do something. And it gets infuriating. But other people I know that's involved in this case have been threatened. So they've had people come to their houses. And what it is, it's that model which you talk about, which is there to destroy and break things down. But it's the people that attach themselves to that model that think, oh, I'll get involved and I'll help break this up as well. And a lot of it is politically driven. It's with people with different political beliefs, where they don't want to see money people coming to Newcastle. But if you give up now, you give up on not just the older people, who you want to see win a game before they, you want to see your granddads and your dads see Newcastle win a cup final in their latter years. But you also think your kids and your grandkids, and so you've got a choice. You listen to these idiots, or you just cut them off. And I'd rather not live a life than live a life being bullied or told what to do. So you just keep going, but it's not pretty. It's not good. And a lot of people that I've worked with have dropped out, and they've just said, I can't tolerate it. I can't do this anymore, because they don't like being threatened and they don't like being intimidated, which is the whole name of the game you're talking about, Irina. It is intimidation. But I think what's good tonight is you've answered questions because that's what you study. It's your knowledge. that confirms what I've been told, that a lot of this whole behaviour that's against what's happening, it's to knock the people who are going to buy the club, it's to knock the fans who want that, and it's to knock those who are active, like me, to try and make it happen. So what you do is you try and intimidate them, and you try and diffuse it and pour scorn on it, make it look like the bad guys is what they're trying to do. And it's a daily, it happens every day. I mean, I've been on holiday for the last week, and for 5 days of my holiday, all I read was abuse from these people who don't want the takeover. You know, and we're told now that there's one person with funding from organisations who's behind that whole operation. One person, and you know, let's hope it comes out, because there's a lot of people trying to find out who that is, and are going way and beyond to track these people down, with police to go as well. So it is a bit of game. Let's just hope that the arguments that I've seen in terms of competition are powerful enough so that the ordinary people, the ordinary fans of this football club, and the people that live in that region that want to see investment in Newcastle can see it. Let's hope all these games that get played on social media don't count for anything. Because I can't wait for it to be over, Irina, because I'll get off social media when it happens.
Mr. Keith and Mrs. Irina would like. I promise my friends that I will ask this question, and they will be in trouble if I'm not. So
I hope there's no transsexuals involved in this.
Oh, please, let me forget about it. It's mistakes.
You never
All right.
Irina.
Okay. What I'm gonna do? I will ask one question to Irina, second question to Keith. Let's start. All right, Irina. This question from my friend George. He said, "Please ask this question. What does a typical jurisdiction hearing look like, and what are the reasons for no jurisdiction? And what is the appeals process? And are appeals often successful?"
If I'm interpreting the question correctly, I think the question is concerning the decision whether or not the case is going to be thrown out, the CAT case is going to be thrown out, or whether it's going to be allowed to proceed, and whether the jurisdiction is appropriate to the question. Now, I'll be honest with you, as a lawyer, I'm not qualified to discuss legal questions that are pertinent to the bar of the United Kingdom. So I cannot comment on the specifics. But in general, the question, of course, is going to be met whether the case is substantial. We've actually touched on that a little bit earlier, whether or not it's substantially similar to the ongoing arbitration case, whether legally it's appropriate for the court to review that decision or not, and whether or not it can proceed under those conditions in general. And the appeal process is basically if there's something wrong with the way the court had reviewed and approached this result an issue, if there's an error in the way it was being handled, then the parties generally can take it to a higher authority and challenge the case being dismissed, or on the contrary, not being dismissed and being allowed to proceed to the next step. That's just generally how it works.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Mr. Keith, this from also from my friend George. What burden of proof will St. James Holding have to demonstrate in terms of anti-competitive behavior? Balance of probabilities or beyond all reasonable doubt?
That's the whole purpose why you're going to have a judge in there. So a judge will make a decision on balance. I mean, that's how the case. You know, any competition case, you've got a panel. I'm told arbitration's got a panel of 3, but a CAT case is different. And if he's talking about the CAT case, it'll be based on balance. I mean, there'll be a decision made. If they can prove there's a cartelling operation, the case will collapse. And when you say beyond reasonable doubt, I already believe that St. James Holdings will prove beyond reasonable doubt. I think that's what they will prove. But if you had a case that ran and the judge thought there was 70% likelihood, then he would judge on that. That's the whole idea. That's why it's called a judge, because he's judging that it's more than likely happened. But I think when you take a competition case on, before you run it yourself and the expenses to do it, and with what's at stake, you will want to prove beyond reasonable doubt on your arguments. And in the arguments that we ran as NCSL, we worked with a QC who said that we felt we could prove 3 of the 6 points beyond reasonable doubt, and the other 3 was it would be a decision between balance and beyond reasonable doubt. But 3 of our points we thought were indefensible. I think the club have got the benefit that they made the application. The club have got the benefit that when they put the application in and they offered to prove separation in the first passage, they've got all the evidence as to what the Premier League came back with. And it's my knowledge that I'm on a legal NDA, so I've got to be careful what I say. But it is my knowledge, prior to getting involved and before signing that NDA, that the Premier League didn't do sufficient to satisfy the whole process of proving the separation between Saudi Arabia and PIF. I'm told from a strong legal voice that the only person or the only organisation that could ever determine whether PIF are separate to the Saudi state is the state of Saudi Arabia. And the reason being is it's the laws of the country that would determine separation. Now, if I was going to Bolivia to talk about a Bolivian company and the Bolivian state, I wouldn't be going to talk to a lawyer in England because you wouldn't have a clue what the rules of Bolivia were. The only person that could give you that evidence is the state of Saudi Arabia. I can talk with a degree of certainty that the Saudi Arabian government have offered distinct evidence to show separation, and some of it was either declined or rejected. But what's noticeable is that and this believe it or not comes to me from the EPL side of things, which is I've never said before, but I got told from somebody on the EPL side of the table that one of their Achilles heels is they never ever sought an investigation into PIF and Saudi by employing Saudi Arabian business lawyers and legal people to prove that to them. Because if you're going to turn somebody down on grounds of X, then you need the argument and the legal proof to say, well, you went about it, you investigated thoroughly. Because if you're doing it, I suppose you're running a tender. If you turn somebody down, you've got to have legal evidence as to why you did that. I don't believe the Premier League are going to turn around and say, we went to company X. I think they might say we tried and they wouldn't act for us, but that doesn't work at all. You can't say, if you came to London tomorrow to employ a lawyer to give you evidence on an English company, you couldn't turn around and say, oh, we tried, because there'll be 1,000 companies in London. Did you go to all 1,000? How hard did you try? And I think you'll find the Premier League haven't tried very hard to go into Saudi Arabia and learn Saudi law. And I think that's the reason why I imagine, I wasn't there at the time. At the time I joined this, Shahid Fatima had already been appointed by the football club. But Shahid Fatima has a wealth of experience in Middle Eastern politics. And I think, like yourself, Irina, I think Shahid Fatima has a wealth of experience in human rights and all those facts. And I believe she's an outstanding QC, but she will be instrumental in this case. And I don't see the EPL. They'll bring expertise in. They'd be fools not to when they're £1 billion, multi-billion organisation. But I think the football club got in there first, and by putting Shai Fatima into bat, I think she'll have all the Saudi arguments completely sealed off. And let's suppose tomorrow PIF dropped out of the whole process, I think she'll still be relevant, because the football club will still be taking action to determine the losses they suffered as a result of not getting the takeover that they should have had. So I believe that the football club, by putting Nick DeMarco and Shahid Fatima on the arbitration side, and then listening to me and my QC, my partner, and going into bat and taking a competition action is the thing that will do it. Because in the UK arena, when you run a arbitration case, it's like an in-house operation. It's a bit like getting laid. I'm not trying to discount it or crudely knock it down, but if you were running a tribunal, and let's suppose you were running a disciplinary at work and you did something wrong, and your law firm ran an in-house process which said, well, we're going to reprimand you, and there's a process you go through, it's X, Y, Z, and that's your right of appeal, etc., etc. That's a little bit like the arbitration. It's an in-house kind of what I'd call kangaroo court, is what we call it in England, where it's not really as damning as a court case. When you do a competition action, it's completely different. There is no such word in competition law as confidential. Now, the Premier League, it's their throb word. It's what they get high on, the word confidential. They think everything's confidential. But in court, you use that word in a competition action, and the judge will slap you around the head with a kipper. Now, the judge wouldn't take that. So what will happen is in the ODT, which is determining the directors, and if they fit the rule directors, that doesn't allow the arbitration process against the OTT, doesn't allow you to get disclosure to any degree. Competition action, if they've got enough disclosure on a CAT case, that's one thing, but you can take it to a full case and you can literally find out anything. And the level of disclosure they go to is phenomenal. They will get every single text, WhatsApp, Instagram, social media, tweet, Facebook, every handwritten note, every anything you've ever communicated to somebody, even voice messages, you'll get a whole lot of disclosure. And you narrow it down by saying, I want all of Liverpool's mentions of the word Newcastle. I want all the Manchester United's mentions of the word Saudi. And I want the word takeover. And what it is that sticks to all the documents. They all find the way there. Then they go to their lawyers, they check them, then they've got to send them across to you. And this case, and I'll say this in a crude northeastern English term, if the people running this case have got big enough balls to run it to the end, the Premier League will not win. They cannot physically win. And the day that I tell you that happened was the day when the European Super League was announced. The day that Super League was announced, and they said, oh, here they are. These 6 clubs are going to meet with Barcelona, and they're going to meet with Real Madrid. It was some of the biggest clubs carrying the biggest debts in the world. You know, Tottenham Hotspur allegedly carrying £1 billion of debt, but they're one of the big 6. Really? Is that what big is? Is it big debt 6? So I don't think for a minute that the day that European Super League was announced was, to me, the day a competition action will smash the Premier League and the Big 6 cartel to pieces. I think it's good night. Switch your lights off because it's over. And then I'm just a football fan, but I've got years of experience of doing this, and I'm not gonna go to my grave having seen Newcastle not compete for 20 years because I didn't have the balls to stand up and speak. I'm going to do that on behalf of the people who I love and the people who I stand with on the terraces, and I'm going to use that experience and knowledge that I've spent years of my working life doing to say you're getting robbed, you're getting ripped off here. You're getting, just like Irina said, Irina's told us tonight that the whole social media spectacle is predetermined. It's set up by we're not fighting the football takeover. We're the geopolitical. Don't let Saudi Arabia get into football. That's what we're in. It's don't let Saudi dominate football. That's what it's about. And us Newcastle fans are saying no. We want Saudi. In fact, we only want Saudi. So that's what we're saying. And people is, you know, if the people at the top, if the football club see this case through, competition action, they win. It's impossible they wouldn't win with the documents and the various stuff, because the European Super League was the gravestone for the Premier League.
Okay, go on, Irina. I think you have to comment before we go to the second question.
Yes, I did want to kind of weigh in a little bit, because first of all, I wanted to express my admiration for your commitment and your courage. It's very, very rare in this area specifically.
Yeah. Crazy.
I'm coming from kind of a similar space, but I do want to caution against excessive optimism here. Not because I don't want to see this case gone through. Actually, the more I hear about it, the more I kind of get myself impassioned to make sure that justice is done. But the people who threaten you, who can put out death threats over a business deal, are not the people who are going to let it go lightly, knowing fully well where it's all gone. When they started the fight, the people who are doing this have the money for the lawyers who've advised them about the legal process without a doubt.
Yeah.
So what happens when you know, that if you play by the rules, you're bound to lose.
Yeah.
You don't play by the rules. You start rewriting the rules. You start manipulating the game. You make off with the pieces from the chessboard. You stack the deck. I believe that the deck is stacked here. I believe they're not going to let it go easily. I think they will pull out every dirty trick in the book to make sure that something goes wrong and the case either doesn't come to fruition, or the witnesses start disappearing, the evidence starts disappearing, things of that nature will happen.
I agree with you. I think it's already started happening. And all I'll say to that is what would you rather do? Live a big part of your life, being some kind of joy that just sits there and goes, oh, yes, sir, no, sir, well, we'll just give up, shall we? So for me, I'd rather just keep...
Completely. But what I'm suggesting is here, don't play by their rules, write your own.
No, if they play dirty, we'll just have to play dirtier.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that. And the simple side is, you know, I might be a little bit crazy. I might have, you know, my best friend is a competition lawyer, and he said to me, he says, this is either the cleverest or the stupidest thing you did in your life. And I said, yeah, I think more days I wake up thinking it's the stupidest thing I've done. And I think I'm a bit crazy, but I've still got the knowledge. And the good thing for me is now, I'm not a threat to anybody, because all that knowledge, 90 gigabytes, has gone to the lawyers. So everything I've done has gone, and I've triplicated it, and it's gone to all the people. And so whatever happens, you know, so if they come to my house and get me tomorrow, the evidence will still run. So they're better off look for the next guy who's got evidence. But for me, when you say don't be too optimistic, I know that if we lose this case, it will be because of foul play. It'll be because they. But it's like anything. When you've seen things with your own eyes, you think that's wrong, and you think to yourself, you know, when you see a letter written for somebody saying, "Make sure you stop this Newcastle takeover," you just think that's illegal. You cannot do that in European company law. You're not allowed to say who competes with you, and when it's your club. And you think, do you know what it is? We're either going to be useless for years and years and years, or we're going to speak up, stand up like men and fight and take the battle to them. Then we've got a chance. We've got something to look forward to, because I'm not going to look forward to football for the next 20 years unless we win this fight. So I don't think we've got a choice. I think it's either, well, I'll put it simple. If we lose this, let's suppose next week they say, oh, the case isn't going to run, and they've bottled it, and it's over. Then I just won't watch football ever again. It's as simple as that. I'll just spend more time watching golf, or I'll spend more time traveling, but I'll just stop watching football. So while they don't give up Irina, I don't have any choice. We've just got to fight. But there's more than me fighting. There's 100,000 Newcastle people fighting, and all them people do. All they need doing is they just need encouraging. They just need telling what to do next, and they'll be there. They're just tired and they're sick of the treatment that we're getting. But people tell me I only wrote one letter. It must have been a good letter, but it's they don't realise it's a group of people. You just hit it tonight for me. You just told us it's not a football fan, or it's not somebody that doesn't want to take over. It's an organisation of people. And what you've done, Waleed, by bringing Irina on, you've probably educated all the Newcastle people into understanding more about the troll activity, where and that's been quite impactful, because it's soured the atmosphere amongst this takeover, and it's made a lot of fans disillusioned. It's made a lot of fans feel down and feel like they can't go on anymore. But I tell you, there's one thing I could say to you, Waleed, today is if PIF come forward tomorrow and said keep fighting to the Geordies, I'll tell you something. You need an army that take the rest of the country on for you, because we all suffer for this. It's untrue, and to me, I've had a year of hell. It's been a nightmare, and I'm not giving up now. I'll give up when it's dead. I'll give up when it's over. But I'm not naive or gullible, Irina. I know that there's still a big fight to be won, and people are saying you're sounding more optimistic. And the reason I'm more optimistic is because I know what competition law can do to people who act like a cartel, and I know these people have been acting in a cartel manner. So that's why I'm more optimistic.
Can we now go to arbitration regarding this restructure? We hear a lot of restructures being saying in the vehicle of PIF vehicle. This has been before the joint statement of the club, which it was weird by the fans. It was the main hearing of arbitration has regrettably now been adjourned until early 22. This was adjournment. Joint statement from club and Premier League. Before that 3 days, there was some in the company houses, some changes in names and stuff. Actually, we would like from expert people like both of you, if you elaborate with this, or you can, is there something regarding, as here, I'm Steve, I think Steve W. I'm not sure if Steve Wright maybe. PIF has become a corporate soul. This links it closer to the state. That's a question regarding structure.
Is that for Irina?
For you both.
Irina, you go first, because I feel they've been talking too much.
Why restructuring PIF would link it closer, or on the contrary, move it further away from the state? Because the agency, relationship between the state and the company is not necessarily dependent on a particular business structure. Whether it depends on whether the state has a stake in the company or not, or whether the board is related to the state in some way. But whether it's one type of corporation or another, or a different, that in itself does not affect the agency.
Keith?
I mean, which question want to answer? The question that's on the screen, or do you want it?
Yeah, the one about the restructure. This is helping the separation. And what do you think it's coincidence, or just a coincidence? 3 days before the joint statement from the club and the Premier League?
I've got to be careful what I say now, because when the joint statement went out, there was a lot of frustration from the buy-in side. There was frustration because they weren't a party to that going out, that joint statement. But it's my my assumptions. I know for a fact that the club wanted to run that case. They wanted the arbitration to happen on time, but the various information wasn't coming through. Things didn't happen on time, and they had no choice but to do that. And then they made a total turnaround of strategy where they did a joint statement with the Premier League. A lot of people at that point question what they're doing, but the club are in this to win it. So the club turned around and did that joint statement. And I think that at the moment they are working with the Premier League more than they have in the past. So I think the fact that the club put that out, I think, and since that time, I think the club are working hard to get the deal. I think there's something going on now, and I think the club are trying to restructure things to get a deal done. My only fear, which I don't mind saying it is, my fear is if it was not a PIF deal. That's my fear. If it was a PIF deal, I'd take it however it was restructured. But after fighting for this for a year to get the biggest company on the planet to take over Newcastle, I don't want to lose that dream. So I think when you use the word restructure, I think it was just a delay. Waleed, at first, when it first happened, before I'd spoken to anybody, I wanted to believe that it was a deliberate delay by the club so that the CAT case could run before the arbitration, because the CAT case would give you all the necessary silver bullets from disclosure that you need. But I quickly learned that the club didn't and weren't responsible for that delay. It was the Premier League yet again. So I know for a fact that it was the Premier League and not the club that wanted to delay the arbitration. What surprised us, and it'll all come out in the wash, was where there was a joint statement saying it's going to be delayed till sometime in 2022, because sometime in 2022 or early 2020 could be May. May could be early 22 or January the 1st. So I was just surprised how open that comment was.
I thought, sorry, one more comment. I thought it was very odd, the description about the disclosure of the issue with the disclosure of evidence. Obviously, Premier League is going to be fighting the disclosure of evidence for the very reasons that were discussed previously. It's very broad, and the compelling disclosure would mean revealing a lot of information that could be damaging to the Premier League's case. But it's almost as if the arbitrators here are almost trying to distance themselves from enforcing what needs to be done in order for the case to be proceed where it should. There shouldn't be issues with disclosure of evidence. There should be a process. There should be compelling dates, and they should be compelling the process if the parties are not being cooperative.
I have two questions from Peter Clinell. Okay, this is for you, Irina.
Peter Clinell. Is that Peter Clinell? I can't be asking Peter Clinell's questions this time of night. Tell him to ring us.
Really, he's insistent, please.
He's a bad man. He's a bad man.
First one will ask Irina, and Keith, if you want to comment, sure. The second one, we'll come to it later. If the Premier League appeal any decision and the tribunal believe there are no real grounds for that, can they throw it out straight away?
Could you repeat the question?
If the Premier League appeal any decision and the tribunal believe there are no real grounds for that, can they throw it out straight away?
What do you mean by straight away? If the appeal decides, if they see that there is no ground, to the appeal process, depending on the outcome of the decision, then of course the legal decision is going to be against the Premier League. Now the problem is whether that's actually going to happen. Now, are there any further authorities of other instances that Premier League can go to after that to appeal the tossing, to appeal the rejection of their case? The fact that they lose the appeal, that's a different story. What can they do legally? What legal options they have if they lose an appeal? That's a separate question. But of course, if they lose an appeal, they lose the appeal.
I think on that, Waleed, there's 2 points to think about on that. When a jurisdiction is heard and you feel like it's put in, it would be remiss of the Newcastle United legal team not to highlight that these people are just trying to drag this on. And they're trying to make it last longer, and the whole process of jurisdiction is delayed. And Newcastle's case is going to be, this is the longest running takeover application in history, and these people are now applying for jurisdiction. Some of the points they're going to apply for jurisdiction on, that they're going to use in their argument, are not great points. There's one point which they'll run, but I think the club will overcome. When the judge writes up the decision, so the judge says, look, your jurisdiction's been denied to the Premier League, the judge has a duty, because judgments in the UK are used time and time again in court cases, and people make references to decisions made by judges. So they have a duty of care in their role as a judge to actually write the whole judgment up to prevent an appeal happening. So because they know that they're trying to progress a case in a competition case, the very nature of competition cases, they've got to be sorted sooner rather than later if possible. And if that judge writes a judgment that leaves it wide open to appeal, then it's going to encourage an appeal. So any judge worth his salt will write the decision up in such a way that it can't be appealed against. Then it comes the question Peter Cannell's just asked. Would you then come forward and give an appeal to somebody who didn't have good grounds? Well, no, you wouldn't. And a judge has the ability to dismiss an appeal. So the Premier League, I spoke to a competition QC, said if they get turned down for jurisdiction, they can appeal and make it last up to a year. But the judge will be trying to stop that from happening. And I think the very basis that Newcastle fights this jurisdiction on will be to stop an appeal happening. If it did go to appeal and they were granted an appeal in the period, I think it would be disaster for the club. So that's my personal opinion.
St. James Holding was set up by Mike Ashley to purchase Newcastle United Football Club. Do you consider St. James Holding to be a separate entity from NUFC and not bound by the Premier League result that NUFC and every other member club must sign up to?
I think you'll find that Newcastle United Football Club is a company and St. James Park Holdings is a company. I think you'll find by British law and Companies House, they're two separate companies. And I think the Newcastle legal team will quickly prove that in a jurisdiction hearing. But when the Premier League admitted Newcastle as a member of the Premier League, one of those 20 shareholders of that Premier League fund, they admitted Newcastle United Football Club Limited and not St. James Park Holdings. So whereas the Premier League will run that argument to try and say they are one and the same, or their benefactor is one and the same, it doesn't make them the same companies. Under company law, they will be separate.
Irina, this is for you from Christopher Argris. He insists to ask this question. On the question, a matter of the separation between PIF and Saudi state, is it enough to prove sufficient separation between PIF and Saudi state, specifically as to control of the football club owner and directors? and not have to prove total separation between PIF and KSA across the board?
Well, now that's an interesting question because it depends. I hate sounding a lawyer, but it depends on who is interpreting this particular issue and whether they're pushing for a narrow or a broad interpretation of the law. From the point of the Premier League, of course, having basically made their bed here, they have to make it as broad as possible. They have to push. They want to see the result, the decision being in the broadest possible term, the relationship between PIF and the Saudi state as much possible. From the point of PIF, of course, showing that the Saudi state is not intervening in the case is what is the result they're going to try to push for in this matter. Now, in many such cases, the results come out somewhere in the middle. Not in the sense that either PIF is with the state or it isn't, and to what extent, but in the sense that there's going to be a lot of back and forth on different factors that contribute to the relationship and to what extent, and it's at the end of the day, it's going to be since it's not an 100, nothing that's an 100, that's not an 100% state controlled agency. It's going to it's always going to be a matter of debate just how much of it is enough to justify it's being considered an independent entity with its own decision-making capacity. Now, the question is, which has been decided in other matters, and here I'm going to take a precedent from a completely different legal issue involving a media company with a close relationship to a state actor. The question was about the independence of that media company and whether or not it could be considered a state mouthpiece. And the decision was made that was investigated in the United States to see whether or not this media company should be designated. It happened on multiple occasions, which is why, I'm not using a specific example. It happened with several major media conglomerates. Whether or not it should be designated as a foreign agent. Whether or not, so in that case, they looked at whether or not how much control did the state have, what about how much funding, and whether where was that funding coming from, what was the financial relationship, what was the legal relationship between the state agencies and the media company, and more importantly, whether or not it had this independent decision-making process, or it was entirely operating in the foreign policy goals of that particular state actor. Now, in the cases of companies that were forced to register, it was clear that there was a very close financial, legal, business, and policy control over the company. So in that case, that's how it was decided that the company is basically a state actor, as opposed to an independent media conglomeration. I believe a similar process is going to be reviewed here, whether or not PIF has, how much of a financial relationship there is between the Saudi government and PIF, how much is there legal control, how much is there how related are the business operations, boards of directors, and so forth, and whether or not it's capable of this independent decision making, or is it simply a tool of Saudi government for achieving specific agendas.
Before we go to next question, Mr. Keith, do you have comment on what Irina said?
Well, I have got comments. It borders on why is football or the Newcastle takeover being scrutinised, yet all this boxing goes to Saudi Arabia and all the Formula One goes to Saudi Arabia. So why does British sport allow Saudi to take the biggest events and the biggest sponsorships and the biggest everything? I mean, Saudi have sponsored Manchester United. You know, they've sponsored them in a substantial way. So why is everything allowable where Saudi money is good for our country until it comes to Newcastle? What is the difference? Why is this separation such a key argument? And equally, why was it not a key argument when Manchester City were taken over?
I agree that there's not only is it hypocrisy, but I don't think something related to football should be treated as something that's related to media. Even though, as I said, football is a geopolitical game here, and not just a sports for some of the actors involved. But at the end of the day, from the point of the United Kingdom, football does not affect UK's own policy, and therefore there should be a different set of considerations between media companies and financial institutions that are trying to purchase a club. And frankly, purchasing something just to have an investment, and again operating a media company in terms of influence operations, those are two separate. Influence operations on the governments of those companies are completely separate things. Now, the argument here, and I'm just being a lawyer and stating the facts, and my personal opinion doesn't matter. The argument some people would say is that it is in fact an influence operation. I don't believe that in this particular case it has that consideration. I don't believe that PIF considered the purchase of Newcastle an influence operation to pressure UK government into preferential treatment. But that is the argument that the Premier League is and those behind it are going to make. That in fact, because of the very economic investments into the region that you mentioned, if it is an entity that is related to a foreign actor, it is in fact a lobbying attempt, and nothing more. That's how they are going to present it. I'm not saying it's true. Personally, I haven't seen any evidence to believe that was the intent behind it, but that's how it's going to be presented.
Somebody asked there, Irina, it was just a good question. Somebody said, do you think personally that PIF and their partners will end up being the owners of Newcastle United?
To be honest with you, at this point in time, I think it's too early to make such predictions because a lot of things can happen. Simply, it's too early. The issue is too complicated. There are too many unknown factors. There are too many unclear ways of who's going to do what and what's going to happen politically and so forth. I hesitate to make it. I think they should. I think if their system is built right, and if people work hard at presenting their evidence and making their case and exposing the improprieties and injustices, justice at the end of the day, and the right thing should prevail. But that doesn't always happen, and it may not happen straight away. It may happen after a long time and many repeated failures along the way. That might be an outcome worth considering and being prepared for. But I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying right now it's just too early to tell.
Life Goals has just asked it, if I personally would be hugely disappointed if it was not a Saudi takeover. I think the answer to that is there'd be disappointment because they are the people that we've waited for, and people like Waleed, people we've all come together for this to happen. If it has to happen through a different organisation, say through partners of PIF, say Ambamis, through Indian ownership, whereby it's bought a different way, but the same original group get involved, then the result would be the same. But I think it would be disappointing to Life Goals, who's asked the question, if we end up with a buyer who's got the same kind of wealth as Mike Ashley, because he's already told us he can't compete. So it would be a huge disappointment to come close to have an ownership with a wealth of 350 billion plus probably another 30 billion. It takes it up like a 380 billion organisation, 10 times bigger than Manchester City. It would be wrong for you to try and pretend that there wouldn't be disappointment leaving that to come to a bid of, say, somebody who's got 2 billion, who is going to make us like Sheffield United or something like that. So yeah, there would be disappointment if it wasn't the one we've been fighting for. But if there's another way of doing it, another way of skinning the cat, as we say in England, then fair play. You know what I mean? Like, but personally, I would like PIF to be involved.
I would like to raise a question here, which is, it seems logical. Let's say some third party involved did not want the sale to go through. Why would they not make a competitive bid through somebody to make sure that the sale did not go through and PIF did not get the result that they wanted?
I can answer that because they already own Paris Saint-Germain, so they can't buy out club as well. The country and company that doesn't want this to go through already own probably one of the richest clubs on the planet. They own Paris. It's Qatar own Paris Saint-Germain, so they would like Saudis not to compete with them, and that is back to your geopolitical war. But to me, I don't mind if we get taken over by PIF, and we're only the third biggest club. Or all I want to do is I just want Newcastle to compete. I just want to go into transfer windows with optimism, thinking we can buy somebody and we can compete. It is, to me, it's about competing. It's about looking forward to the cup. It's about looking forward to challenging for things. That's what it is. So I'm not worried. But clearly, there are 6 clubs in England extremely worried. And we all know who they are.
But the simplest solution to all of this would have been to buy out Newcastle and just prevent this particular sale and put Newcastle in the hands of sympathetic parties. Then it would just stop Saudi Arabia from going through with this particular bid. The process would have been sooner and there wouldn't have been so much talk. No, it would have been the easiest solution for that party. Logically speaking, all they would have to do is just pay a higher bid, take it over, be done with it, maybe resell it to somebody else if they didn't want it. But at the end of the day, this is not about making pragmatic decisions that lead to the quickest result. This is about revenge.
Regarding Paris Saint-Germain, they are things now is much better. They are visiting Saudi Arabia in January, so I think there is improving in this area.
It's very good of you. It's good of you to tell us all.
Why don't they put an end to this misery?
Exactly. The thing, Waleed, if they come over and you see them in January, will you tell them I won't be going there for my holidays?
And have it too. I think that's a very convenient position of trying to milk 2 cows at the same time.
Yeah, I think you're right, Irina. The other thing, tell them I won't be going to the World Cup neither.
Okay, I will finish. As apparently, thank you. Really, it was a nice discussion, and I'm sure if we continue, if you have the power, we'll stay until the CAT case is started next week. I will finish
10 to midnight over here.
Yeah, I will finish with this question for you both. We'll start with you, Keith, and we'll finish with Irina. In simple words, we're talking too much legals. In simple words, I know this is a hard question, but I save it for the end. What next? Expectation. What next? In coming 2 months, Keith. What next do you think happen? Just what do you think will happen?
Right. I'm going to tell you bits I know, and I'm going to tell you bits that I'm thinking and making up in thought. I think that the jurisdiction hearing will run on the 29th. I don't think they'll pull out of that now. If they do pull out of it before the 29th, I believe there's a deal, an imminent deal being done with the club and probably a different buyer. I think that it'll run on the 29th. I think that the football club will win, and I think that I hope the judge has the. I'd like to say common sense, but it's Rudy to say that. So you've got to use words like charisma. I hope he's got the nous and the talent to write a judgment that doesn't leave it wide open to appeal. I then believe that there'll be a lot of rumblings from within the jurisdiction to the saying the CAT case is going ahead, and the key will be for the CAT case to go ahead before the arbitration. If that happens, I think the whole case will start to crumble and settle. I think, or if it starts up, I don't think it'll go at the end. I don't think a competition action will see the final judgment day. I think at disclosure stage it will crash. And it's now your question to ask Irina. Then I want to ask Irina a question before I go. Okay.
Very cool. Same question to you, Irina, before you go to Keith's question. End up with Keith's question. Go on.
So to answer the question, I'm going to take a step back for a moment, and I'm going to explain. Earlier on, Keith mentioned that these fake news campaigns online did not work because the fans want the sale to go through. The reason why they didn't really work is because they weren't really aimed at the fans. Those campaigns were not aimed at the regular people who just want to see the games and who just want to benefit from an improved economy. They were aimed at elites. And elites that are really should be called quote unquote elites because there's nothing, honorable about them. There's nothing well bred. It's just people with money who manipulate the system, who are corrupt, and who don't really care about the people they represent. In this case, they to some extent have a responsibility to and answer to the fans of the clubs that they run, because that's ultimately who benefits from this game is the fans. So you have people who use human rights and so forth as an excuse. They don't care. They listen to the people who don't care about human rights. They do their bidding. So it's not really about human rights. All of that is manipulating certain interests and creating proprieties, giving jobs to so-called human rights organizations. People, and I know who those human rights organizations are that are involved in these cases. They're crooks, literal people with criminal records, frauds. These are not human rights activists. So we are creating a situation of gross injustice, of the entire system being taken over by foreign interests who are manipulating corrupt officials against the ordinary people. They're creating divisions in a society. They're exacerbating divisions in society. They're creating a two-tier class system. And I think what's going to happen, maybe not in 2 months, but soon enough, is that the fans themselves forget the legal system and what's going on in the courts. The fans themselves will say that they've had enough, and there's going to be some sort of political action against Premier League. I don't know what form it will take, how it will look like, but football fans are not known to be completely quietist individuals who stay silent and never react to anything. So I expect that there's going to be some sort of a major reaction that the people, the propagandists involved in this are not counting on, because all they are thinking is about the agenda, and they think that ordinary people can can keep taking and keep being manipulated, and they won't. And I think they're underestimating that particular category of people. That's my personal opinion. Now, in terms of the legal process, what I can tell you is that, while I would like to believe that the trajectory is going to be perfectly smooth, I don't believe that it is, because I don't believe the game is being played fairly. But what I think is going to happen, based just on the conversation that I had with Mr. Patterson right now, is that there are going to be some wrenches thrown that the other party does not know. How that's going to come about, I don't know. I think there are going to be people emerging after this conversation, having more discussions behind the scenes and figuring out what to do next. That's what I personally think. So my answer may not be what you're expecting. it's not an easy legal prediction, but it is what I personally believe is actually going to happen.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your honesty. Because you're from America, and you obviously will know Americans, a lot of people compare me to Bruce Willis. Do you think I've got a likeness to him?
I actually do. I was actually
thinking. That's all I knew you were. And waleed, you'll have to sit out this, but do you do many of these, Irina, do you do many of these podcasts? Do you do them often?
Yes, but usually on different topics, but a lot of them involving information warfare, because that's kind of my professional specialty. I'm a consultant in that area. I work in that area professionally.
Fantastic.
And I write papers on that academically. I study the processes by which these campaigns are run. This is a very interesting case study for me, and I think I'll be delving a lot deeper into this case on more than one level. After this, I've already been following it, but from this conversation, there's a number of interesting things that have emerged for me as a professional. I'm interested, and as a person, I'll be honest with you, you kind of made me care about this issue a lot more than I did before coming into this conversation. You kind of really inspired me to want to kind of really get involved myself in some way.
An inspirational Bruce Willis. That'll do for me. That'll send me to bed happy tonight. It's been a pleasure, and if you want, you get my details off waleed if you want. If you think I can help you with your investigations, what I would ask you to do is, if you can provide any information to me that you pick up, I'm in contact with the legal people, and I will make sure that anything that's of significance to this anti-competitive behaviour gets to the right people, because it's wrong what's happening to our city, it's wrong what's happening to our football club, and it's wrong what's happening to our fans, and they all like me. You know, I'm when you say I've inspired you, if you talk to any of our football fans, the inspirational people, because we haven't won a domestic trophy, Irina, which is a trophy within England. We've never won one of those since 1955. So you know, that's a long time ago when you think about it. You know what I mean? 65, 66 years ago. That's the last time we won a domestic trophy. The last time we won a European trophy was 1969. And on top of that, the club, Newcastle, if you drop out of this Premier League, you go into something called the Championship, which is it's a real fight to get out of. And when you go into that league, the crowds drop. You know, people stop going, stop watching you. And when Newcastle went down, and bear in mind Manchester City and Manchester United have been there as well, we've got the record of 50,000 plus attendances every game at home for a full season. So we've had 50,000 or more people watching them in the lower leagues, despite never winning trophies for 60 odd years. And you just look and think, what would happen to this place, this city, if we could do something? What would happen? You know, what would it mean to the people? And I don't just mean fans like me, who's getting on in years, who's been going. I'm talking about the kids, the people who wear the shirts. What would it mean to I don't know, women's football in the area? What would happen to junior football in the area? But I just hope that the fight's worthwhile. It's been a pleasure talking to you, because your knowledge is in a different sphere to where I've worked in. But tonight I came on thinking, who's this lady, and where's waleed meet? Because waleed takes you to some funny places. And I mean, for waleed to put a young lady on screen next to a Bruce Willis lookalike, and then start talking about transsexuals, it just shows what a different guy he is. waleed, they were your words. It's recorded, and you will be able to play this back and say so. And the other thing I want to say to you, if you do come across any information which is of interest, Irina, share it with me, because just for my own interest. And if you've got information you don't want me to share that's private, send that as well, because I'm really private.
I think we need to have a conversation in the chat box. I just posted my email and my WhatsApp and Signal number.
Okay.
Signal is
I have it already.
Okay. Okay, that's great.
So,
that's great.
Yeah.
Is it the Bruce Willis lookalike that made you send that? If I'd been ugly, would you still? Sorry about that. I just can't help.
No problem.
It's midnight and I just can't help having some humour.
In Premier League. That's
Premier
where
League.
the other people are.
It's more. I think it must be less boring than doing that. But Waleed, thanks a million for inviting us on. I come on. It's the second time I've been on your show, and I don't know what to say when I come on. But you just sit back and you fire it up, and it's a pleasure. And recently, Irina, Waleed was the Premier League took Waleed's whole social media account down, which again it comes to that thing about trying to stop people that are proactive for the takeover. So what they do is they watched him and took him down for nothing, and so he's trying to build it all back up. And I said to him, if I can help you, come on here and get your subscribers and get people following you more. And we send him things out on Twitter to follow him. And he was at 5,000. And if there's one thing we want is to get him past that. And we want to get it bigger than that. So he can look back and think, well, they might have hurt him, but they haven't damaged him. So I'm a big fan. And I've told Waleed a week ago, I said, I'll help you any which way I can. But tonight, you're ringing me at 9 o'clock at night saying, Keith, I want you to come on the and I didn't know what you wanted. And he said, there's this lady coming on from America. And I thought, God, I don't know what you think I know, but it's been a pleasure. And it's the other thing is there'll be a guy might watch this later called Toon Tipster, Irina. He's a guy called Joe. Why are you laughing?
I remember that conversation.
Tell a lady, what's Joe's name?
Is it okay to say it?
Joe Walker.
Joe
right?
Walker.
And Irina, when you see him, he's very forward, this guy. But just tell him, just say, I was talking to Bruce Willis the other night, and I was on screen with Bruce Willis. That. He'll know exactly who it was. Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, and I look forward to talking soon.
Okay, take care. Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
It was wonderful.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it. It was exceptional night. Really, you answer a lot of questions. Appreciate that. My question, our fan of the show question, my friend's question, really exceptional. Thank you very much. And the CAT case next week. And hopefully, if you'd like to go for the part 2, apparently we'll have a lot of information coming from the jurisdiction next week. Hopefully, to have this again. Really, Sir Keith, really thank you for joining us today, and a special thank to you, Irina, for nice to meet you. We are honored to meet you. I was busy today, but I noticed space on Twitter. I tried to quick hearing you in Twitter space. It was lovely hearing you for a few minutes. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Good night.
Happy Saudi Day.
كان معنا كيث باترسون صاحب قضية الإخلال بالمنافسة التي تبناها مايك آشلي. جاوبنا اليوم، طبعا الحلقة كانت باللغة الإنجليزية، بنحاول إنه ناخذ أهم المقاطع اللي تكلم فيها السيد كيث باترسون والسيدة إيرينا سوكرمان المحامية من الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. تكلموا عن الكثير من التفاصيل وأجوبة كثيرة يعني لم نكن نعرف يعني الامور القانونيه تحتاج لها ناسها، ففعلا احنا حاولنا نجيب الناس اللي متخصصه في هذه الامور، ونحاول ان شاء الله. طبعا انا احتاج اشوف الحلقه مره ثانيه علشان ارتب المقاطع واقص المقاطع. Mr. Keith Patterson, it was really I wanted to explain later to our friend Stuart Penman, because he was really looking for together doing a second part, but this is happening very quickly.
Yeah,
I really appreciate you helping me. You are become like my co-host for tonight.
I've really enjoyed it, and I'm doing a show with Stuart tomorrow night, and then he's going on holiday. So I'll be on the phone with him tomorrow. But I've agreed to come on and do another show with Stuart, with yourself, to try and get all your listeners, get all your Twitter people back up. But been a pleasure. And it's great to listen to a girl who's got a different knowledge, different mindset. The one thing I picked up from more than anything is that the whole social media game isn't a game really. It's deliberate. You know what I mean? She's just hit it on the head. The whole game is geopolitical, and that's why I'm determined as ever. I just want this deal to go through.
And she take right. She's honest. She really is straightforward.
Very honest. But I just want this deal to go through, you know, and then we can all go back to being who I was and enjoy it. Mind, I did like the fact that she thought I was Bruce Willis's double. Like, I mean, waleed, you've got to tell Joe Walker that tomorrow. But been a pleasure. Midnight over here. What time's it where you are?
Actually, it's holidays and still early for us.
I would have a great Saudi day anyway. It's been a pleasure. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, mate. Thank you, sir.
Take care, my friend.
See you soon. Good night. باي باي. اوكي، طبعا حنا صار لنا بعض الظروف. كان عندنا اليوم مع بيتر كلينل سبيس في تويتر من 11 ل 12، من الساعه 12 للساعه 2 الان، تقريبا ساعتين تكلمنا عن القضيه الكات اللي هي الكومبيتيشن ابيل تريبونال اللي راح تصير الاسبوع القادم. طبعا انا كنسلت حلقتي الرئيسيه. طيب اوكي، راح اتكلم الحين عن حلقتي متى ان شاء الله. راح نخليها بكره ان شاء الله، يعني بنحدد موعد نتكلم فيها عن نيوكاسل والمباراه القادمه امام واتفورد. ايضا لدينا يوم الاحد حلقه خاصه مع فريق ميراث، فريق كره القدم السعودي للسيدات في مدينه جده. حقق مؤخرا بطوله كاس العالم المقامه في الدرعيه لكره القدم للاهداف المستدامه. نجوم ان شاء الله سوف نستضيفهم الاحد في الساعه 8 مساء توقيت السعوديه ان شاء الله. مبروك لفريق ميراث وبالتوفيق في قادم المباريات والدوري السعودي النسائي ان شاء الله اللي راح يكون مختلف هذا الموسم. حلقتنا كثير، يعني عندنا حلقه هذه ان شاء الله راح نتكلم فيها، لكن حنا اليوم كان كل الزخم وكل الاهتمام على هذه القضيه. راح تكون لايف ستريم رابط بث مباشر يوم الاربعاء 29 سبتمبر 10:30 بتوقيت بريطانيا 12:30 بتوقيت السعوديه. اللي حاب يشوف القضيه هذه اللي راح تتكلم عن الإخلال بالمنافسه من جانب الدوري الانجليزي، زي ما قال كيف كل الفتره اللي راحت صار لنا سنتين تقريبا انه يقول لك it's confidential it's now they can't say in the court. ما يقدرون يقولون في المحكمه انها موضوع، يعني انه امر موثوق لا نستطيع البحث به، غصبا عنهم راح يتكلمون في المحكمه المنقوله عن طريق البث المباشر. حاولت اليوم regarding the question, I'm sorry, I have too many questions in the other phone and I try to cover the important question I found in the chat. Thank you, William. It was really lovely, Irina. Fantastic show with Keith Peterson and Irina as well. Okay. Thank you all for your chat. Okay, now last thing we'll do shout out for our sponsor, Spider VPN. Okay, hello to all Newcastle United fans. I wanted to take a minute to tell you about a wonderful service I have recently discovered. This service is offered by UK-based company called Spider VPN. Now I know there are many VPN companies out there, and I always encourage my YouTube subscribers to make sure they use a VPN to keep themselves safe from bad actors who want to steal their data and spy on their activities. But Spider VPN are different. Spider VPN not only offer a world-class VPN service, but they also supply specialized router with their VPN service built right into the router. This means that if you purchase one of their specialized VPN routers and install it in your home or workplace, all devices like phones, laptops, computers, and tablets that connect through Wi-Fi or cable to the router are fully protected automatically. This means that every single device you own can be protected by a world-class VPN automatically and continuously without having to set up each individual item. I have one of these routers in my home, and I can tell you it gives me amazing security and peace of mind knowing that any of bad guys out there cannot steal my data or spy on me. Check out their range of VPN routers at www.spidervpn.org and try 7-day free trial on your Android device through Google Play Store. بناخذ من وقتكم بعض الدقائق عن نعطيكم فكرة عن فكرة ال VPN. الخدمة مقدمة من شركة بريطانية اسمها سبايدر VPN. أكيد كلكم تعرفون شركات VPN كثيرة، بس اللي يميز شركة سبايدر إنها ما تقدم بس خدمة عالمية وعلى مستوى عالمي، وتصنع أيضا أجهزة راوتر متخصصة مع خدمة VPN. تكون الخدمة مدموجة مع الجهاز. في حال اشتريت الجهاز الخاص بشركة سبايدر وثبته في بيتك أو أي مكان تبغى تثبته، راح تكون أجهزتك المتصلة بالواي فاي محمية تماما وتلقائي راح تكون الحماية، يعني ما يحتاج كل شوي تسوي إعدادات عشان تضبط VPN. أي واحد راح يستخدم هذه الأجهزة من شركة سبايدر راح تكون بياناتها محمية بشكل آمن جدا وتلقائي. إذا حابين تعرفون أكثر عن الشركة وأجهزتهم، ادخلوا موقعهم، في نسخة تجريبية لمدة 7 أيام اللي حاب يجرب الخدمة. فعلا الخدمة ممتازة من خلال تجربة شخصية أنصحكم فيها. الموقع www.spidervpn.org. هذه هي شركة VPN. في النهاية راح ألتقيكم مرة ثانية قريبا. أنا ما أدري، بشوف اليوم إذا الناس سهرانة في تويتر. سوينا حلقة اللي أجلناها اليوم بسبب يعني صار لي فترة أبحث عن محامي، وصار لي هذا الشيء فجأة اليوم، فقررت إني أنتهز الفرصة لنجاوب على جميع الأسئلة اللي كانت قضية نيوكاسل. نتمنى لكم يوم وطني سعيد. هي لنا دار، وكل عام وأنتم بخير. نراكم قريبا. تصبحون على خير.
بلادي بلاد الإبا والشمم ومغنى المروءة منذ القدم. بلادي بلاد الإبا والشمم ومغنى المروءة منذ القدم. يعانق فيها السماح الهمم وفيها تصون العهود الذمم. ستبقى بلادي منار الأمم لتمنع عنها دياج الظلم. باسم المهيمن حامي العلم. كل عام وحنا بأول الصفوف، جيلي وصي جيل سير ولا وقوف. يا وطن شعبك على قلب رجل، القلوب تعانقت قبل الكفوف. هذه بصمتنا باللون الخضر، لا فرحنا يفرح العالم سهر. عظمة يا بلادي عظمة الشمخة، السعودية وهل يخفى القمر. يومنا السعودي.
Naharik Saeed from Bahrain, and very happy National Day for Waleed and all of the people in Saudi Arabia. I hope you have a very special few days break, and I look forward to coming on Waleed show LW Newcastle in the next few weeks and being in Riyadh myself before the year finishes. Again, have a fantastic National Day.
Hello to my good friend Waleed. I'd just like to wish you a very successful and happy Saudi National Day to you and all the people who watch your show. All the best. Hope you have a great day. Best regards to everyone and all our friends in Saudi Arabia.
Hi Waleed, Kifalik. It's good to see you. Sending best wishes to you and everyone in Saudi from here in Dubai and from Newcastle United supporters all the way around the world on a very happy National Day. May we see a partnership grow that sees everyone grow from strength to strength. It'll be good to see you again. Let's do a show again soon. Happy National Day, everyone.
Hi Waleed, good to see you today. It's your friend Keith Patterson from NCSL, and I just want to say to you on this wonderful day that everybody in Newcastle sends you the best. We all very much buy into what you've been doing over in Saudi Arabia and what your fellow people have been trying to do to gain the purchase and the takeover of our football club. We hope that one day it comes to fruition. Everything you stand for and the culture and the way that you've gone about this sends great optimism to people in northeast of England. I just hope that one day we can celebrate, one day we can enjoy the fruitions of PIF's investment in Newcastle. We hope that the dream that we've got over here actually comes true. But for you, I've got to say, I've got massive admiration for you. The way you've held yourself, the way you've dealt with all these topics, your grasp of British football, of the Newcastle people, and the way we are is admirable. And I, for one, am a big fan of you and you fellow people. So take care. Best wishes to everybody on National Saudi Day, and I hope you have a great time.
I'm coming home, Newcastle. Ben Arfa all the way. What a goal! Hassan Ben Arfa! A magnificent goal! I'm coming home, Newcastle. Cisse. Oh, that is sensational! Papi Cisse with another blinding strike. Gutierrez! Can there be a more popular goal? Newcastle, I wish I'd never been away. Shearer!